Howdy hey, I'm Hipyo Tech. And wait. I know you see this and you're thinking, another video about an expensive keyboard. Well, what if I told you that budget keyboards are getting better? Budget custom keyboards, I should say. Now you're probably thinking, how much is it? Can I get it right now? Well, don't worry, I'll answer all those questions soon. And I'm not gonna waste your time. This thing is incredibly good for the price. Don't believe me? Just listen to this. You're probably wondering how I got it sounding that marbly. Well, it actually wasn't that much, so stick around and find out. Speaking of sticking around, 69% of you aren't subscribed, and that's kind of cringe. Just hit the subscribe button, I'm trying to hit 1 million. Now, as I mentioned before, this video is sponsored. However, in my standard keyboard video fashion, they did not tell me what to say about this board, they did not get the chance to review the video or edit the video, and all of my thoughts are my own. But as always, that's just some things you need to know. Speaking of things you need to know, what are these little nubs on the PCB? What's going on with the nubs? Anyways, I'll be building this keyboard out with a polycarbonate plate that we'll get back to later, and one of the consequences of them not telling me what to say is there's a lot of things in this video that I actually just don't know about, but I'll try my best to give you the most accurate info. The only thing I have to go off of is the product page that's like half finished right now. Also, this keyboard has a lot of accessory options that we'll talk about more later as well. Now, similar to a fruit in a Japanese grocery store, this keyboard arrives in plastic wrap. Also, similar to a fruit in a Japanese grocery store. This was a bad metaphor. The plastic wrap is really tough, so I can't actually poke through it without a knife, which is good because it means it'll protect the outside of the case. Now, my first impressions of this thing is that, wow, it's pretty hefty, and howdy hey, look, I can wave in the reflection of the back weight. That looks gorgeous. But I know what you're thinking. You're wondering, Hipyo, what is the price? Tell me the price or I will kill you. Well, that's where it gets a little bit interesting. Technically, this keyboard starts at $99, which puts it right at the same price point as the Monsgeek M1 or the on sale Sense 75 from Drop. But they had me in the first half, not gonna lie, and this is where it gets a little bit more interesting. So it's $99 for the soldered version, which if you like soldering, that's a great thing for you. This is an aluminum board. It's incredibly well crafted, but we'll talk more about that later. However, if you don't like soldering or you can't solder because you have a cat that will never leave you alone, then you'll be paying an extra $23 for the hot swap PCB and plate. Now, I know that is quite a bit more. However, it just might end up being worth it, as we heard in that sound test. Also, it's worth noting, it has 17 different color options. So if you don't like this color, there's definitely a color for you available on their website. 17? Oh my God. The craftsmanship on this thing feels equivalent to like a Zoom 75, which is pretty impressive considering that's about $60 to $80 more. Before we get to the really good aspects of the board, here's the final nail in the coffin for some of you. This board will be selling as a group buy, which is quite unfortunate. Only join a group buy at your own risk. There's always a chance that everything falls apart looking at you, Mex & Co. Now, as you see here, I have the Chroma PVD weight on the back of my board, and it's absolutely beautiful except for the fact that you can't really understand the cursive that's written into it. This is a $20 upgrade that I honestly just recommend you go with the aluminum version unless you like the slightly clackier sound that PVD brings. Now we'll see as we start to build it, but overall my first impressions are pretty positive. Let's see if it's moddable at all. Now, quite similar to me, it'll open up with just a couple screws. However, Nola determined that she really wanted to play with the screwdriver, so that took about 5 times longer than it should have because she kept bumping into it. So everybody go say thanks, Nola. Now that we've got the keyboard open, we can see that it's actually a little bit more interesting than we originally thought. You see all those indents in the plate? Those are for different mounting styles. So this keyboard isn't just your standard gasket bing bong, and we'll talk about that more soon. What we see here is also an internal weight, and oh yeah, this keyboard comes with a decent amount of foam, but not like a lot. Like, it's not so much that the anti-foam gremlins are gonna be like, foam, Sorry, anti-foam gremlins. You guys are just really, like, kind of annoying about it. I don't know. Just, like, be more chill. It's fine. It's preference. Speaking of preference, as I prefer to not get cancer from soldering, I like a hot swap PCB, because I have to build hundreds of keyboards. The hot swap PCB has, I'd say, bare bones layout support, but it does the job pretty well overall. Now, unfortunately, my prototype PCB had some issues, so I can't fully test out like software or anything like that, but let's check out stabilizers. Now, these aren't included with the keyboard, but for some reason, you guys just keep asking me to try these and TX stabilizers, which don't worry, I have like 20 of those. These are the Owl Stabs, which are from like the parent company of this parent company, Owl Labs. They're kind of just another Durock style stabilizer, and they're honestly pretty fine. To lube them up, I just get the inside of the housing very, very well lubed, and then plop the stem in. If you're new to keyboards and you're wondering, lube, what's going on here? I lube a keyboard to make it sound better. Like the intro, remember? If only I could lube myself. Wait, this just in? I lube myself, and I actually just released a song. You're listening to it in the background right now, and if you want to check it out, I'll have it linked down below. It's pretty good, by the way. Like, just listen. Also, for the first 6 days after this video is live, I'll be doing a giveaway, which I'll also have linked down below. Now with the boring part out of the way, we're ready to move on to the rest of the keyboard build, the exciting part. Now you're probably wondering, Hipyo, what switches are you going to use? Well, I've got some switches up my sleeve. Oh, I should have recorded a clip of switches up my sleeve. Anyways, in order to compare this more easily to the Sense 75 and Zoom 75, I'm going to be using the Marandi switches. Now, I know these are kind of played out, but they're incredibly good for only $45 to fill out a board. They're a linear switch that come very nicely factory lubed, and I think it'll allow for a bit of an easier sound test comparison. Granted, sound tests aren't conclusive, but I know you guys are going to use them anyways, so I'm just going to use these same switches. Also, I don't really like the sound or feel of a polycarbonate plate without foam in between, so I'll be using that, but I'll play around with the sounds without case foam later in the video. Now, just a little bit of bing and a little bit of bong, I got all the switches installed. I will say this keyboard overall has been relatively easy to build. There's been nothing out of the ordinary that makes me go, God, I want to die, please God save me. So that's good, that's a good sign. It already beats the GMMK Pro. Now, I have to figure out how I'm gonna fit this into the case. We've got a couple of different mounting styles as I talked about earlier. I could go with a top mount, I could go with a PCB gasket mount, whatever that means. But first, I'm gonna install these little force break mod bloop blops. These are gonna keep the keyboard from sounding blacksmithy. They literally just act as a very thin point of contact so that you don't have any metal contact. Also, talking about some of the accessories, there's a cute little badge that can be illuminated by some LEDs. That's kind of neat. Personally, I think it's a bit of a fingerprint magnet, so I'd kind of just rather have a switch here, or maybe something better, like, wait, is that? Oh my God, that's a knob. British viewers, don't freak out. British viewers, stay calm, British viewers, don't go comment yummy yum knob. Well, yeah, this board has a knob option, which in 2023 is pretty standard, but pretty sick. Not gonna lie, I love touching knobs. Don't take that out of context. Now, let me put my knob away, and oh, I spoke too soon. There is an element to this keyboard that makes me want to die. It's the ribbon cable to connect the knob. It has to thread through very, very weirdly, and it's really annoying. Also, because my board is a prototype, the clips weren't properly secured, so something popped off. So I'm just gonna do this PCB gasket mount real fast. Basically, you put these little bloop blops into the PCB slots, and then that will act as your gasket point of contact for the board. This honestly seems like the most interesting mount to me. Like, top mount is fun, gasket mount is fun, but yeah, no, it gives you a nice little spring, but not too much responsiveness. Also, ignore the fact that the cable's poking out in the top right. I fixed that later. Please stop looking at that. Now, at this point, you're probably wondering, Hipyo, what keycaps are you gonna run with this keyboard? You want it to sound, oh, sorry, I just dropped the keycaps in from drop.com. Now, keyboard building Hipyo forgot to add a note as to what keycaps these were, and voiceover Hipyo doesn't want to look it up either, so good luck, editor Hipyo, have fun. What I do know is that these are DCX keycaps. These are double shot, and they tend to sound relatively clacky. They're kind of like a GMK keycap, but just not quite as solid. I think they have really clean legends and really clean colors, so the set does look incredibly stunning. It's also like a $100 keycap set if I remember, so you probably won't be putting it on your $100 keyboard. But it looks clean, all right? Don't get mad at me. This would sound pretty similar to like a $30 double shot set as well. Now, after building this thing out with the PCB gasket configuration, I thought it was pretty good. If you're patient enough to wait for a keyboard and you've got $130 to spare, this thing is just as competitive as the Zoom 75 or any of those other boards. Granted, it doesn't sound as marbly as the Zoom 75. Like, this definitely gave me a clackier vibe. So this is kind of like the clackier counterpart. If you're anti-Thok marble gang, then you can go with this. But wait, I'm gonna be trying it in different configurations as well, after I put down my springtime desk mat from kineticlabs.com, link down below. This desk mat is $24.99 and in stock, that's all you need. But before we get into the different layouts, how does the keyboard sound right now? It does not sound like a cheap metal keyboard. There's no pinging, no clanging, no depression. It feels relatively nice as well, and budget keyboards are just getting better. It's also really exciting that each budget keyboard has a slightly different sound profile and feel, so that you can kind of customize them to your heart's content. Speaking of not content though, this wire keeps popping out constantly. That needs to be fixed in the final version. Please take notes. So that was the PCB mode with the foam removed. Honestly, it sounds no different to me whatsoever, so it's still good. Let me just put on these little gaskets, and don't worry, I'll take out the PCB bits in a second. And finally, I'll try it with the normal gasket mount with foam in there. But what I kind of realized is that all of the different configurations of this one really didn't change the sound or feel that substantially to me. Like, I feel like the switches and the keycaps did a lot more in this situation, but your mileage may definitely vary. But before I leave you with the final sound test, what's my overall verdict? I think this thing is pretty darn good. If you're interested in a group buy, then you can check it out with the link down below. Please join group buys at your own risk. And let me know what you think of this keyboard. Is this exciting to you? Is it still too expensive? Is it not expensive enough? Do you like the sound profile? I don't know. Are you lonely? Okay, that's fine.